How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Putting 10% of your portfolio into Bitcoin could be massive. It could actually outpace the other 90% of your portfolio. And if you have, a couple $100, a couple $1,000, a couple, maybe tens of thousands of dollars, you want to watch this video because this is powerful. Obviously, if you don't believe that Bitcoin's going to go up, this might not be the video for you. But if you are bullish on crypto, or you were bullish and now you're like, oh man, Bitcoin hasn't moved in a little while, this is the perfect video. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification underneath the video so you can see future videos just like this. If you hear something in the background, it's either the Bitcoin dog or the Bitcoin baby who's right in front of me playing, but we'll get through it. I think it'll be fine. Also, if you want to trade crypto, there are links underneath the video to BTCC, to Blofin, to BitUniX, to WEEX, to CoinW, to Hotcoin. There are a handful of different exchanges under there. None of them KYC, and all of them have different bonuses right now. So if you're bullish on Bitcoin, maybe you want to make a long position. Now, with that being said, I am very heavily invested towards Bitcoin ETFs, crypto in general, right? You might guess that by the fact that I talk about Bitcoin every day. But I feel like at heart, I feel a little bit risk off, right? My Bitcoin, I don't really consider that as part of my retirement savings. It sounds weird to a lot of people because I think Bitcoin's going to do really well, but there's just a lot of volatility. There's a lot of, I don't want to say uncertainty, but I just don't like to bank on pulling from that in 20 years. I don't know what it is, 30 years. But today I was sitting there thinking, well, what if I did include this? What if I included my Bitcoin? Like, where could it go, right? And I thought, well, I have an outsized allocation compared to most people. Most people, probably honestly don't know Bitcoin as well as I do, don't have the same conviction. So they might not have the same allocation, right? Obviously, we all have different percentages of our portfolio that go into Bitcoin. But what if you were just like a normal person that wanted a 10% allocation to Bitcoin? What could this do for your portfolio over the next 20 years? What would that look like? And I thought, well, who better to run numbers against than Michael Saylor? But let's not be as bullish as Michael Saylor. Michael talks about having a $13 million Bitcoin price in 20 years. Let's say Bitcoin does half that, 6.5 million. Some people are going to be in the comments saying, hey, that's way too crazy still. $6.5 million is insane. But that's about a 23% ROI or 23% compounded annual growth rate. We've done much better than that over time. My dog agrees with me. She's sitting at full attention here. But we've done much better than that over time. And if nations really do start buying Bitcoin, if there are more and more companies buying Bitcoin, it's really hard to tell what kind of price shock we're going to get. So go with me here. $6.5 million Bitcoin in 20 years. If you put 10% of your portfolio, let's say your portfolio is worth $100,000, and you put $10,000 into Bitcoin right now, and then you put the other $90,000 in the S&P 500. The S&P 500 performs relatively well, just continues to compound at 10% a year. Of course, there are some years where it does 20, 30%. There's some years where it's negative, but let's say it continues to compound at 10% a year. It's pretty good. 10% a year for the next 20 years. That 90,000 would actually grow into about 600,000 in the S&P 500. That's a really good return, right? Now, Bitcoin, on the other hand, goes from 10,000 to about 680,000. So in 20 years, if Bitcoin performs half as well as what Michael Saylor thinks in terms of ending price, a 10% allocation to Bitcoin would be worth more than a 90% allocation in the stock market. Okay, that's pretty crazy. Of course, there are some individual stocks that will outperform, but we're talking about the S&P 500 that generally gets 10% a year. Some people even assume it gets 9%. So that's really powerful. You start thinking about that. That's not that's not accumulating more Bitcoin over time. That is just $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. Now, there are some lofty assumptions, right? We're assuming that Bitcoin does a 66x, 68x from here on out. That's with Bitcoin's price at about $95,000. Maybe by the time you're watching this, maybe Bitcoin's at 100, 110, something like that. Maybe it's much higher, in which case the ROI would go down naturally. But this is pretty insane when you think about it. And I don't want people to go out and say, well, if that's the case, well, I'm just going to put 100% of my portfolio into Bitcoin, because part of it is going to be withstanding the next 20 years, not selling. There are a lot of people that think, well, if Bitcoin, let me check on the Bitcoin baby here for a second. There are a lot of people that are saying, well, if nations really want to get their hands on Bitcoin, you can see there's a lot of high production value here. If nations really want to get their hands on a lot of Bitcoin, they're going to try to force up the price. They're going to try to force up the price because that's the only way to get people to sell. So it's going to be hard to hold on to your Bitcoin. Your $10,000 of Bitcoin, when it turns into 50,000, 100,000, a million, it's going to be hard to continue to hold it. And eventually the ROI, the compounded annual growth rate, will go down over time. It's not going to compound at 50% and then 40% forever, right? It's going to go down. We're already seeing that a little bit over the last couple cycles, but we could see still massive appreciation. And I think it will be important to take profits when there are times of just mass hysteria. But I'm kind of focusing on the altcoin market to take profits, not necessarily Bitcoin. I might, if it's life-changing money, I think that's always a good thing to do, right? If you have life-changing money, sometimes it's good to take a little bit off the table, depending on the asset, right? Some people will say you never take Bitcoin off the table. You never sell Bitcoin. But with altcoins, I'm definitely doing that. With Bitcoin, I may still trim if we get to insane levels, right? But it's going to be really hard to hold. There are going to be a lot of people that sell Bitcoin, just like the people that bought, everyone says it would have been great to have Apple at $1 or 50 cents or something. Yeah, a lot of people bought Apple that year, but a lot of them sold it at $1.50, $2, $3, $4. And now it's at, what, 200 something, 250. So it's going to be really hard to hold on to really appreciating assets over time, really high appreciating assets. But if you can do it, if you can allocate a decent percentage of your portfolio, if Bitcoin performs half as well as people think, you could have huge returns. Now you take this up a step, you say, well, what if you did 90-10, and then you continue to dollar cost average into the portfolio as well? That could be crazy. Like you start putting in $100 every couple weeks on top of your 10 grand, and you're looking at millions of dollars. Of course, this is a rosy scenario, like I said, where Bitcoin hits $6.5 million. But I want to hear your thoughts on this underneath the video. What do you think a 10% allocation in your portfolio could do over the next 20 years? Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Check out the links. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.